Before anything existed, there was a question. Not a philosophical question, not a scientific hypothesis, a real, documented event, recorded in the oldest text in human history. The account says it took 6 days. We're going to examine every single one, because when you look at what Genesis 1 actually claims, moment by moment, statement by statement, it reads less like a myth and more like an eyewitness account from someone who was there. We start at the very beginning. Genesis chapter 1. 31 verses, approximately 400 words. It is the most read, most debated, most scrutinized passage of text in the history of the world. Philosophers have argued over it. Scientists have tried to disprove it. Theologians have spent careers defending it. Tonight, we're not going to argue about it. We're going to read it carefully, like detectives, because when you slow down and examine what this text is actually saying, not what you assume it says, things get very interesting very quickly. 10 words. In the original Hebrew, even fewer, just 7. And in those 7 words, the author makes 3 enormous claims. There was a beginning. Time is not eternal. It had a start. Something or someone existed before that beginning. That someone acted. Creation was an intentional event. Keep those 3 things in mind. They will matter throughout everything we examine tonight. Day 1. God speaks light into existence. Now here's where our first anomaly shows up, and it's one most people read straight past. The text says, God separated light from darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness night. Evening and morning, the first day. Whatever this light was, it was directional. It created a cycle, and it preceded the sun by 3 days. Jewish theologians, early Christian scholars, and even modern physicists have speculated on what this first light represents. The text doesn't explain it. It just states it happened. File that away. We'll come back to it. Day 2 is one of the least preached passages in Genesis, and possibly one of the most significant structurally. God creates what the Hebrew calls a rakia, an expanse, a firmament, a dome. He separates water above from water below. For ancient readers, this was a cosmological statement about the structure of reality. For modern readers, it raises questions about what exactly is being described. But notice what the text doesn't say at the end of day 2. Every other day ends with, and God saw that it was good. Day 2 does not. This is the only day without it. Was the work of day 2 unfinished? Did it continue into day 3? Or is there something about this particular act of separation that the text treats differently? We don't know. Day 3 is actually 2 creative acts in one. First, the dry land appears from the gathered waters. Earth and seas are separated and named. Second, vegetation, plants, trees bearing fruit with seeds inside them. And here at the end of day 3, we get the phrase twice. God saw that it was good, as if making up for its absence on day 2. Day 4. This is the day that trips people up the most, because we've already had light for 3 days. Now the sources of light appear. But look at how the text describes their function. It doesn't say God made the sun to heat the earth or the moon to control tides. It says, to separate day from night, to be signs, for seasons, for days, for years. That distinction would have been striking to every ancient reader who encountered this text. Day 5, the waters teem, the skies fill, sea creatures and birds, every living creature that moves. The Hebrew word used here is nephesh, living soul or living being. The same word that will be used for Adam in chapter 2. The animals and fish receive the first blessing recorded in Scripture: be fruitful and multiply. Day 6. The land animals are created first. Livestock, creatures that move along the ground, wild animals, each according to its kind. God saw that it was good, and then something shifts in the text. Everything that came before, light, sky, land, seas, stars, plants, animals, God speaks, reality responds. But here, for the first time in Genesis 1, the cadence slows down. The text becomes deliberate, personal, almost intimate. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. 3 things stand out immediately. Let us, a plural. Our image, language reserved for no other creature in all of creation, and mankind itself, set apart from everything that came before. By now, a pattern starts to emerge. Genesis 1 is not written like a primitive myth stitched together carelessly from scattered traditions. It is structured, layered, intentional. The light before the sun. The missing declaration on day 2, the repeated phrase, according to its kind. The slowing of language before humanity. The open-ended 7th day. These are not random details. The text is doing something. Ancient Hebrew literature often communicates through patterns rather than direct explanation, repetition, symmetry, echoes, intentional interruptions, and Genesis 1 is filled with them. Not chaotic, architectural. The author expects you to notice the moments where the pattern breaks, because the breaks are where the meaning lives. Earlier we asked, what was the light before the sun? Day 4 does not answer the question. It deepens it. Because once the sun finally appears, Genesis still treats the first light as something entirely separate. Not sunlight, not starlight, something more fundamental. And then there is day 2, the only day in all of creation without the phrase, "and God saw that it was good." An omission so strange that scholars have debated it for centuries. But then day 3 arrives and receives the declaration twice, as though something unfinished had finally been completed. The text never explains this directly, but the structure forces you to notice it. A careful analyst pays attention to anomalies, and Genesis is full of them. Then comes humanity, and suddenly the chapter narrows toward a single idea, image, where we see the Hebrew phrase, Tselem Elohim, image of God. In the ancient world, kings placed statues of themselves throughout their kingdoms as representations of their authority. The image of the king declared who ruled that territory. Genesis takes that royal language and applies it not to kings, but to every human being alive, male and female, together. Every person becomes a living image bearer. That idea was revolutionary. In a world where human worth came from status, bloodline, power, or empire, Genesis declares that dignity is embedded into human existence itself, not earned, given, which means the meaning of humanity is not invented by society, it is rooted in creation. And this may explain why the language changes before humanity appears. Because Genesis is not merely describing another creature entering the ecosystem, it is describing the arrival of beings meant to reflect the Creator into the world itself. But even that is not the final pattern. Because hidden underneath the entire chapter is something even larger. There is one final detail in Genesis 1 that modern readers almost always miss. Ancient readers would have recognized it immediately. The 7-day structure, the repeated phrases, the movement from chaos into sacred order, the progression from forming to filling, the climax on the 7th day. This is temple language. In the ancient world, when a temple was completed, the deity would take up residence inside it. Not because the god was tired, because the work was finished, and Genesis 1 ends the same way. Not with war, not with rival gods battling for power, not with chaos returning to consume the world, but with rest. which means Genesis may not simply be describing the creation of the universe. It may be describing the cosmos itself as the temple of God. And if that is true, then the final image of creation is not matter. It is presence. And then we arrive at the strangest detail of all. Every other day ends the same way. Evening, morning, a conclusion. But not day 7. Day 7 has no closing formula, no evening, no morning, no recorded end. Ancient rabbis noticed this centuries ago. The text leaves the 7th day open, as if humanity is still living inside it. Which means Genesis 1 is not only describing the past, it may be describing the present. The story is still unfolding. The rest of God remains open, and suddenly every anomaly in Genesis begins converging into a single possibility. The light before the sun, the strange omissions, the repeated structures, the image of God, the cosmic temple, the unfinished 7th day. Not disconnected curiosities, a unified architecture, a text designed to be explored slowly, meditatively, patiently, not skimmed, because beneath the simplicity of Genesis 1 is extraordinary depth. The deeper you go into it, the more it feels less like a random collection of ancient ideas, and more like a deliberately constructed vision of reality itself. Next time, Egypt. 10 plagues, one stubborn pharaoh, and a God who refuses to be ignored.